Greetings and welcome to episode 31 of the Sustaining the Herd podcast, brought to you by Agri-Services and Engineering of Raymond, Nebraska. I'm Andrew Wadle, and I'm joined in the studio as usual with my co-host Brock Vitek.
Hey there, Andrew.
Hey, Brock. Good morning, and welcome back to all of our existing listeners. We appreciate your support and the feedback we get from you that our episodes are giving you nuggets of wisdom as you go about your days and thinking about sustainability as it relates to agriculture. And to our new listeners, we just want to tell you a little bit about what Sustaining the Herd is all about. From our perspective, anyway, it could mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people, but we kind of see it as being three different aspects. The first being sustainability of keeping contaminants out of our air and water. We all want clean air to breathe and clean water to drink. And so that's the first part of sustainability. The second part of sustainability is doing more with less. Efficiency, maximizing the use of resources. And so that's a huge part of sustainability. And the third part of sustainability from our perspective is business sustainability. How do we keep our agricultural enterprises up and running and functioning and profitable? Our businesses need to be profitable so that they continue to stay in business and they continue to produce food, fiber, and all the things that society requests of agriculture. So with that, we just want to jump into this episode. And this episode is really going to focus on what we call maybe the third pillar of sustainability, and that is sustainable businesses and how do we get ag professionals, how do we get people to come into our industry, and how do we have an industry? And it's with people, and people are the most important thing, because whenever you go through our episodes, isn't it, Brock, where the people always come up and the importance of people. And so that's what we're going to jump into, but we want to start with we're halfway through the year. Let's just talk about some of the highlights of the season so far.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. I think that's a good idea to look back a little bit as we find ourselves at the midpoint of 2025 here, and maybe look ahead a little bit for the rest of the year as well. You know, we started off strong with a really outstanding episode with Katie Dotterer back in early January, talking about Hispanic labor in the agricultural industry and all the great work that Katie is doing to help bridge the cultural and language barriers between U.S. farm owners and managers and workers and Hispanic workers. And that was a lot of fun. And, you know, we've really just covered the gamut when it comes to topics, everything from that one with Katie to having John Schrader on after that for a couple of episodes, talking all about cattle feeding, what that looks like, and how cattle feeders are working to be innovative and sustainable in what they do. And, you know, we've done a few episodes like this here today where it's just been us as well, without a guest, talking about some of the topics that we see in our day-to-day work when it comes to anaerobic digestion and liquid solid separation of manure, trying to dispel some myths there, all the way to more recently when we were working to settle the debate on settlables, talking about sand and grit and different things in digesters. So it's been good just to really look at go through some diverse topics so far in the season. And I think that we intend to keep up that diversity in our episode lineup.
Going back and just starting with Katie, you know, we really do everything we can to kind of hit on the topics that are affecting people today, and you don't have to get too deep into the news cycle to see how important Hispanic labor is to our agricultural enterprises. And yeah, Katie does everything she can to foster those relationships. And you mentioned John Schrader. You know, we always talk about how, you know, we're so new at this. There's firsts all the time. Well, you know, it was great to have John Schrader as a cattle feeder coming on, talking about what he does. And along those same lines, we had Andy Fabian, a row crop farmer from Western Pennsylvania, talking about farming in Western Pennsylvania, as well as another topic that's very apropos today, that being ag trade. And, you know, Andy, having been on the soybean board unbelievable breadth of knowledge when it comes to agricultural trade. We dug into the tariff issue a bit, as delicate as that might be, but that was some really, really informative episodes.
Yeah, we've had a lot of fun with it, and just a little fun fact for our listeners. Actually, I was fortunate to have dinner with John Schrader here just a few days ago, earlier this week, and he's still talking about the episode. I know he really enjoyed it, and shout out to John for being a good promoter of sustaining the herd. He's still telling everyone all about the podcast. We appreciate that. Thank you, John.
A good promoter and a faithful listener. So hi, John.
Certainly. Yeah, and it's like we've both said, there's just been so many great episodes, and I look forward, to the rest of the 2025 season as well. I can only imagine some of the things that we'll be covering in the coming months.
Absolutely. We talk a lot about anaerobic digestion, right, Brock? I mean, that really fills a lot of our days. And, it's one thing to say produce biogas, but boy, we had a great episode with the people from Cummins, right? David King and Tom Quimby. We talked about what Cummins has done in terms of engine development to allow for the use of biogas. It's one thing we produce all this great biogas from manure, but it's got to go someplace. It's got to land in a market, and so the people at Cummins have made great strides in producing the engines that can run on biogas. So just remember, that truck, that semi you see going down the road could be fueled by biogas. And yeah, if you want to dig back into episodes and listen to David King and Tom Quimby, that was a really, really fascinating episode.
Yeah, it really was. And I think that episode's a good example of one of the things we try to do here on Sustaining the Herd, which is covering everything from soup to nuts, as you often like to say, Andrew, in terms of we're all the way, at the beginning of the process, at least in terms of anaerobic digestion on the farm, with how do we manage dairy manure or feedlot manure, for example, all the way to how is the fuel being produced by that manure through this anaerobic digestion process being used in an RNG engine produced by Cummins Incorporated, delivering food perhaps to the supermarket that the people in town, all of us, are consuming. Really trying to cover that process and help our listeners understand everything from soup to nuts.
Yeah. And so, I think in order to as we go about and segue into, really the theme of this episode being agricultural professionals, how do we develop agricultural professionals? I think a recent episode that really segues into that was Jacob Hansen of ALA Engineering. Some of you may recall that what Jacob is and his team are doing is they're developing autonomous feed trucks. And that is this is like mind-blowing stuff, where you'd have a feed truck that would, like a self-driving taxi in a city, but you would have this feed truck autonomously operating in the feedlot, dispensing feed in just the right amounts in just the right places at just the right time, to ultimately, it's a big part of sustainability, right? Is not just feeding cattle, but feeding cattle properly. And it also then segues into the labor side, in that, labor's tight. We yes, we do have the Hispanic labor, but still in all aspects of agriculture, labor's tight, and ALA Engineering is doing their part to kind of meld all these things together. But the absolutely amazing thing about what Jacob is doing is technology. Everything is all about technology. And I think as we go about looking at these next generation of people involved in agriculture, let's even talk about people directly relating in farming. It's going to be about training people to maybe not be managing people, but now you're managing technology. You're managing this autonomous feed truck network as opposed to a group of employees.
Mm-hmm. That's correct. It's just a completely different ballgame, we might say, as we look at the future. And ALA and Jacob, what a great example of what is coming down the line. And as we continue to segue into our main topic here of preparing and investing in the next generation of ag professionals, I'd like to hit on a couple other episodes briefly from so far in the season. One of them being our most recent one, verifying sustainability
Oh,
with Doug
yes.
Stanton from IMI Global and Where Food Comes From. I think the work that Doug and his team are doing is another prime example of what the ag professionals of the future need to be prepared for. It's not just doing our best to do the right thing on the farm and following the principles of sustainability that you laid out so well in the beginning of the episode here, as you always do, but also being able to tell the story behind that and to verify those claims that we're making so that consumers can have confidence in the food they're purchasing. It's not just doing the work on the farm and doing what we know to be right. It's telling our story too. That involves data, technology, communication, storytelling, all of it. And yeah, Doug and his team, they're doing all that every day. And I know the next generation needs to be ready for that.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely.
And another one that we cannot forget about is our innovation and industry involvement episode with Dr. Pond from West Texas A&M University. Talk about preparing the next generation. That's quite literally what Dr. Pond and his team are working to do as they build out their programs and construct a brand new feedlot research and education center down there in Canyon, Texas, to prepare the cattle feeding industry workforce of the future.
Yeah, that was really, really impressive because I think that it's no mystery that for those of us who've been around university facilities, university farms, if you will, they tend not to really reflect reality, right? I mean, it's just and it's because they're doing research and different things, and they almost can't look like a commercial facility. Fast forward that to West Texas A&M, and what they're doing is they're basically building a feedlot with the direct input of the industry. The industry is placing cattle on their feedlot, and so it's what an amazing partnership when it comes to managing and operating a university facility, all for the purpose of developing ag professionals.
It's pretty neat, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Andrew, I think we've covered all of the episodes, at least all of our guests from the season so far. Could be one or two that was just us without a guest. We maybe didn't get too far into, and I think that's all right. But with that, should we dive more into our topic of the day here?
Absolutely.
Perfect. So yeah, let's switch gears and dive headfirst into what it looks like to prepare the next generation of ag professionals. And I think I'd like to start off with why this is important, or at least why I believe this is important. And please jump in here as you see fit. I might just start a little bit by sharing some of my own story as someone who did not grow up in the ag industry and has come to find a passion for the ag industry and working in a career in it now. So I grew up in a small town in northeast Nebraska, 800 people and lions up in Burt County, and did not grow up on a family farm or ranch. No one in my family worked directly in ag, but I got involved in FFA in high school. And of course, ag community, a lot of farming around. I was familiar with it, but wasn't living right in it. And FFA is what got me interested in the ag industry. And I can't remember if I've told you this story before or not, but it was actually the summer of my between eighth grade and freshman year, so getting ready for high school. And I had one class period that I was still trying to decide which class to take, and I was leaning towards music technology, believe it or not.
Good move, Brock.
I was, I enjoyed band and choir, and I was in pep band, and really enjoyed that throughout high school even. Deciding between music technology and intro to Agri-Science. And of course, my dad was saying, "Oh, you ought to try ag class." I wasn't an FFA, but I took some ag classes, really enjoyed it. I thought, yeah, I don't know. Music technology sounds fun. That's where my friends will be. And I'll tell you what the kicker was, or what helped me make the decision, was Mr. Kevin Anderson, who I consider to be a very good friend today, who ended up being my high school ag teacher and FFA advisor, and I'd had a couple classes with him in 7th and 8th grade. Well, he sent letters out to all of the incoming freshmen. It was probably in June or July of that summer. And saying, hope to oh, here's what we're doing with Intro to Agri-Science. I'd like to invite you to all do this. I'm like, oh, yeah, that's nice. The letter really didn't convince me, but it was a handwritten note on the very bottom of the letter that said, Brock, I hope to see you in my classroom in August.
Oh, wow.
And that is what sealed the deal right there. For me to take ag class, join FFA, and as I like to say, the rest is maybe history now that I'm working in ag. So don't mean to get too historical, but just wanted to share that as an example of what, even the little smallest things we can do, like a little note encouraging someone to maybe, a young person to inviting them into the ag industry, even if it's something like to check out this Intro to Ag class. And that was just really a huge moment for me.
And Brock, just keeping in mind that not only do we have listeners that are people in town who might be familiar with FFA, but we have people in town who don't have any idea what FFA is. Can you just describe the acronym and just what it's all about? As
I was rambling on, I was thinking I should probably explain that. So thanks for mentioning that. So for those who are not familiar, FFA stands for Future Farmers of America, or at least that's what it originally stood for. It's since come to be known as the National FFA Organization, given that agriculture is more than just farming and ranching. It is everything from production ag like that all the way to engineering. People like Andrew is an agricultural engineer, someone like myself, scientists, business people, everyone in between. So just being inclusive of all those ag careers. And FFA is a student career and technical organization, meaning that it is something that students in middle school and high school are able to do as an extracurricular activity. There are various contests, competitions, and experiences, everything from career development events, they're called, where students can participate and learn about everything from plant science to animal science, food science, agribusiness, you name it. There's also leadership development events where there are speaking contests, a contest on parliamentary procedure, Robert's Rules of Order, among some others. And also a lot of student leadership opportunities, as the structure of FFA is there are local chapters within a high school. And then some states have like district involvement, and there's a state level and national level, and there's conventions and gatherings of students at all of those levels too. So it's really just an agricultural education opportunity for students in junior high and high school.
Yeah, it's interesting. As you know, I've been in this business for a long time, and whenever I come across people who have FFA in their resumes, they're just a little bit different. And I don't mean different like a little bit like crazy different.
Well, I'm a little bit different in that way, but yeah, it's okay.
But they're a little bit more professional. I think it's because you guys have been schooled up on Robert Rules of Order. You know how to conduct a meeting. You've done public speaking. And there's just something a little bit different about you folks from FFA, who I think it's fantastic preparation for a career in some kind of an agricultural profession, whether it's in production or whether it's what we do in some kind of supporting services.
Of course, yeah, and I'd like to add that I think FFA was a bit of a connecting point for me with SETI Agri-Services and engineering as well. While I was originally connected with SETI through the Angler Agribusiness Entrepreneurship Program in the College of Ag at the University of Nebraska, FFA was a bit of a common thread when I sat down with Zach and Dean for the first time. Our founder, Dean Secchi, recently completed a couple terms on the Nebraska FFA Foundation Board. Dean and the Secchi family have been very involved and invested in FFA. And I appreciate that there are industry leaders like Dean who choose to invest their time and treasure into such causes. And I know that was a good connecting point and kind of a common thread that I think led to the opportunities I've been fortunate to have here as well.
Yeah. I want to come back and we'll talk about developing people as it relates to SETI. I just want to come back out to 30,000 feet.
Sure.
And say, for people who are, I'll say for students or for people who have students who are looking to enter the workforce, I just wanted to give my perspective as far as, it's one thing, everybody here, follow your passion, take music technology, follow your passion, right? But at the end of the day, you do need to get a job, right? You do need to pay the bills and whatnot. as someone who's been around a bit and also has children of age who are looking to enter the workforce, I think that agriculture right now, it's a really, really hot topic. And actually, I'll even take a step back further and say, in my opinion, where I see the biggest opportunities in employment in general are anything involving food, fuel, and water. Food, fuel, and water. If you are working in any one of these areas, you'll never go hungry. There will always be opportunities because people will always need those things. When I say never go hungry, you will always find employment, whether if you're in food, fuel, and water. Well, geez, look at agriculture. Agriculture literally weaves through every one of those things, and so food, fuel, and water. Food is clearly ag. Well, Brock and I, on our day to day, we do a lot of bioenergy stuff, right, Brock? And
we do.
Well, that's the energy piece, and then there's the water piece, because sustainability principle number one, we want to keep contaminants out of the water, right? And so agriculture really kind of has the potential to touch on those three things: food, fuel, and water. And so, I think that for people who are looking to guide their young people or young people who might be listening, I think we are 100% bullish on ag and ag employment. And, we see it just as a matter of our hiring and the fact that we have shortages for people in these particular areas.
Certainly. There's always going to be a need for people to work in agriculture because it is what feeds and fuels the world, quite frankly.
Yep, absolutely. And going back to what I was talking about earlier, we need to talk about the people who do the supporting roles in industry like we do, but we also need to remember that we want to have these farming operations that are enticing for people to come back to the farm, so to speak. And so we need to have these businesses that are financially sustainable. But then, as I was saying earlier, the new generation is different than my generation. And Brock, you're a little bit closer to the newer generation. And I think that it's a bit more enticing when the drudgery has been taken out of this work, where now you're managing technology versus managing people. Just as generations ago, the drudgery involved horses and plows, and we moved on to tractors and plows, and and these things continuing to evolve. And I think that as technology continues to evolve as well, I'm encouraged that is what's going to attract young people back to the farms and ranches.
I completely agree, Andrew, and I think that it's a bit of a call to action for what I'll call the current generation of ag professionals, and that could be quite an age range, to really proactively think about this and how can we not only inspire and encourage the next generation to even consider a career in ag, but after they've gotten over that hurdle and perhaps made the decision to do that, how can we help them to be successful in ag and be prepared for who knows what's to come in the next several decades?
Yeah. Brock, talk a little bit about, if you would, your internship experience. You can talk about it as it relates to SECI, but really it could be any company that offers an internship program.
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that. So as I was getting into a little before, got connected with SECI through the Agribusiness Entrepreneurship Program at the University of Nebraska. And that turned into an internship working in livestock sustainability. And that actually started around 4 months before Andrew came around. So I'm aging myself or dating myself a bit here. Pre-Andrew days. That's a while ago. So we're glad to have you here.
Oh, thanks, Brock. Likewise.
And thank you. And that was a really outstanding experience for me to be able to have an internship and be a bit entrepreneurial in it. And I also had an internship with a farm owner here in the Midwest who had a cattle and a cow-calf and operation in the area where they had quite a bit of timber land. as well. And I did some business development work there, exploring carbon credit opportunities to see if that might be a viable revenue source or business model for them. And that was, farm credit was a great experience. And then this business development internship was more of a step into what I call my first step into sustainability focused work. And it was after that I got connected with SECI then. But I think a common thread throughout all of those internships for me, and I think internships in general for most people, would be that it's an opportunity to learn about the industry you're working in, learn about the company you're working with, and just to explore your interests and see if you and determine if you might see a path forward or a place for yourself in that industry and perhaps even that company. So that's another thing. I'll put this out there for students. Yes, an internship oftentimes is an opportunity for a company to see if they may or may not want to hire you full time, or maybe for another internship if you're still younger. But it's a two-way interview. It's also an opportunity for you as the intern to decide, is this an industry or a company that I would like to work in? So don't forget that it's a two-way interview. It's for you to make a decision as well. But anyway. That's really my take on internships. It's an opportunity to learn and grow, and it's a two-way interview at the same time.
Yeah, I agree with that. And
yeah,
I'll say one cautionary note, or maybe just a reality check when it comes to internships. What I find really kind of funny is that when I was in college way back when, internships wasn't a thing. It was called a summer job. A lot of times what I hear these days is students will take an internship and they think internship sounds really, really fancy. There's a lot of razzle dazzle with internship, but you know what?
Correct.
When it comes right down to it, it's a summer job, right? And so you could be digging ditches, you could be doing the most menial tasks, and it's an internship is really, really, it's not necessarily completely reflective of what you would do in a day-to-day if you were hired in the future. You are summer labor. I'm sure there's some exceptions to that, but that's just an observation that I've made, that sometimes people think that it's something a little bit more than what it is. As you said, Brock, in many cases, it is a two-way street.
Yeah, do a good job.
It's a job interview, and it is really important when you call it an internship, call it a summer job, whatever it is. When you show up there every day, as a student, it is game on, because you are being watched, whether you know it or not. Watched from the standpoint, evaluated from the standpoint of could you be a future employee. And just to give you some insights as far as how SECI handles interns, and I don't think it's probably all that unique in this industry, is, we're turning out fewer and fewer ag grads. And so what's happening is, and fewer people are coming from agricultural backgrounds. And so, there's many times, and even today, where we're looking to hire for positions, these graduates, they don't really exist. Like, so for instance, somebody to
Homegrown.
do ag structures, say, and so what we like to do is, bring people in. Well, if we can't hire them the way we want them, well, we kind of train them and mold them to what we want them to be, and homegrown. And so that, that is truly an internship opportunity, where we are training you, we're evaluating you, but we're also training you for what we would hope would be a future with our company. And so those opportunities are really fantastic.
Yeah, I agree. It's an opportunity for companies to really train up their workforce as well, rather than just maybe some summer labor. It can be that too, but it goes beyond that.
Yeah, absolutely. So on that note, if you are somebody that is seeking a position in agricultural structures or agricultural engineering or civil engineering applied to ag, because that's what we're doing now in agriculture, is because a lot of the agricultural engineering programs have gone by the wayside, and so we as an industry, we're happy to take people from outside of the core ag, degrees, so to speak. But if someone has the heart and the interest to want to apply everything that they know to agriculture, the degree is just a degree. It's how you sell yourself and how you apply yourself, is what really makes the difference.
Yeah, I completely agree with that, Andrew. Is if you have a passion for it and you're willing to learn and put the work in, I think the opportunities are endless, and that even goes beyond the ag industry. But I think especially within the ag industry today, just go into it with an open mind and work hard.
Brock, so if I was to kind of wrap it all up and as far as my advice, as far as like developing agricultural professionals, just summarizing some of the things we talked about, I'm going to be a big advocate for food, fuel, and water, because food, fuel, and water, it's everything that we do, because I've said it a million times that agriculture is the greatest recycling system, the world has ever seen. And so we need more people doing this, because the world population is increasing. As they say, they ain't making no more land. And so we need to feed more people with less land when you consider the population is growing and farmland is being encroached upon. Food, fuel, and water is just a huge part about it. The other thing that I'm taking away from what we talked about was, your experience with FFA. And we didn't talk about any of my extracurricular experiences from back in the old days, so to speak. But I will say this. I wasn't an FFA member. However, some of my best college experiences that prepared me professionally outside the classroom were club type things, activities through the American Society of Agricultural Engineers and Alpha Gamma Rho fraternity and things like that. Just professional organizations where you still did a lot of the same things you talked about in FFA, where you learned how to do a meeting, you did public speaking and these things. And so I would encourage people to be involved in FFA and every other bit of extracurricular activity as well. Lastly, but certainly not leastly, is this whole internship. These internship opportunities are absolutely priceless, because it's a two-way street. Try and buy.
Yeah,
do you have
really.
any other thoughts on those things?
Yeah, might actually zoom out for just a moment and talk about what a lot of people call the soft skills. I like to maybe call them the hard skills, because they're very important. They're foundational. That while we're focused on the ag industry here, and I completely agree. FFA, clubs, extracurriculars, all day long. But also, there might be more people than you who are interested in, I'm speaking to the aspiring ag professionals of the future right here. There probably are other people who are interested in what you want to do. And let's say there are maybe, companies trying to choose between two interns and who they'd like to offer to come back next summer as an intern, or stay on part-time during the school year, or have a full-time role. Well, what if, you're both pretty good at, say, engineering, but what if one of you is also good at communicating and has a broader understanding of the industry and how all the dots connect in the bigger picture? One of you knows how to act professionally in front of clients, to run a meeting, take command of a room, to summarize, a meeting in a document. All of those types of things, the soft skills that I like to call the hard skills, because they are so foundational, and they should be the concrete upon which all the rest of this stands. Focus on that stuff too. You can really set yourself apart as a professional. And that's all I really have.
Yeah. And by the way, you hit upon a subject I just love to talk about and remind my fellow engineering professionals about, and that is absolutely what Brock just said. We're trained to do math and computations and analysis and this and that. And oftentimes people will say, oh, he's a lousy writer because he's an engineer. No. Nobody gets a free pass. Nobody gets a free pass from being the full package. And so you need to be just as good as writing and reading and communicating as you are doing, as you are doing analysis. And the same holds true for folks like you, Brock, on the business side, and, people who are good at communicating and things like that. You need to be able to do math, right? And so
I try to think like an engineer. It's important. Yeah.
Yes. And you do a great job at it. So, the fully rounded individual every time is going to get the job over the person who might be singularly focused on something.
Yeah, exactly. Be more than just your specialization.
Yeah.
Well, Andrew, with all of that, I think we've covered it.
Yeah, and as folks listen to this, if you ever want to talk about an internship at SETI Agri-Services and Engineering, like I said, we're always looking for good candidates. Even if you go on Indeed, you don't see SETI listing everything. We're always looking for good agricultural professionals. Hit us up.
Yeah, and
Talk to us.
even if you're someone who's already well into your career, we're always looking. Maybe you're the current generation, not the next generation. Please reach out. Always happy for have a conversation.
Yeah.
So I hope that all of our listeners have enjoyed what I might call a bit of an atypical episode for us. We've did our half a year in review. We've talked about preparing the next generation of ag professionals, and I hope this has been just as fun for all of you as it has been for us today.
Well, yeah, Brock, and this has been fun, but I'm not sure if it's been as fun as like sand rodeos and corn chowder talks, but hopefully.
Yeah, the haven't had quite as many one-liners here, but that's okay. It's a serious topic, right?
We're saving them up for next time.
Yeah, exactly. People better be ready. Yeah. So with that, would like to thank all of you, both new and returning listeners, for choosing to spend some time with us today. And we look forward to being back with you again, as always, in a couple of weeks with another episode. Until then, thanks for joining the herd today.